Hello, my name's Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to a final transfer targets of the video. Gameweek 38 is already here. It's been an absolute whirlwind of a season and a fairly successful one currently for both the graduates. Let's get straight into those transfer targets.
Okay, so getting into our last transfer targets of the season, I can't believe how quick the season's gone. It feels like it's just flashed by. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, it's a much different game week to the usual. Obviously, we should get team news on most teams before the deadline, fingers crossed. It's an hour and a half before everyone kicks off, if you weren't aware, at 4 p.m. UK time. So, given that, a lot of these transfer targets could be really bad assets if they get benched on the day. But obviously, stay tuned to all of our social medias. We'll be posting all team news that we do get early before the deadline. So kicking off with the defenders, we're starting off with Pedro Porro. Obviously, Spurs have Sheffield United away this week. Really nice fixture for them. And depending on what happens tonight, as we're recording this, between Manchester City and Spurs, it could be quite an important game for them, given they're just about in the top four title charge. Obviously, he scored against who was it? Who was it? Who did they just play at the weekend?
Burnley.
Burnley, that's it. And of course, he scored against Burnley at the weekend, and what a finish that was as well. He's had great attacking numbers so far this season. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, I really like him if Tottenham have something to play for, and that's the big if here. If they don't have anything to play for, then I'd maybe steer a little bit clear of him. But the underlying numbers are good regardless, and the fixture is really good as well. My only concern, like I said, is if they have something to play for. Like the recording is before this City game, so we'll see what happens with that. If City go ahead and beat Spurs, then maybe look for teams potentially one of those Arsenal or City defenders as an alternative there.
Yeah, and then next up on our list is someone who's asterisked, and we've not had an asterisk player on transfer targets yet, I don't think, this season. It's Reece James. Obviously, he came off the bench for Chelsea in their latest fixture, again, obviously before the double, and got an assist. And he just seeing that cross to Jackson, it's just like, where's that been all season? But obviously, he's been injured. Obviously, depending on his minutes that he gets in the second game of the double, would you be considering him, Ben, if he maybe got a start in that second game?
Yeah, if he got the start, then I'd definitely be considering him. I just feel like the risk management, it's just not. I don't think Potter's going to risk it at the end of the season, despite sort of everything. If he can get 30 minutes in the tank, brilliant. But I'd be apprehensive just due to that fact. If he was guaranteed a start, though, I would 100% be tempted on bringing in because his attacking threat is so good and he looked so good when he came off the bench anyway. And I don't think many were expecting him to have the impact that he did. Yeah, again, he showed why he's so quality when he keeps fit.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, just be prepared for that 30-minute substitution if you are looking at Reece James come game week 38. Next up is probably the best player in FPL right now, especially for the last few weeks. Has been Josko Gvardiol. Ben's owned him for all of his hauls. It's why he's boosted him up the ranks so far at the end of the season. I went De Bruyne over him, and that's the reason why I've fallen down the ranks pretty much at the end of this season. But yeah, picking up just a crazy role really for a defender. It's like an in between that sort of Cancelo and Gundogan role that we sort of discussed previously when mentioning Gvardiol in the weeks that we've sort of picked him. Go on, Ben. I'll let you take it away with him. It's just been incredible in terms of goal threat, right?
Yeah, he's been incredible for the goal threat. And yes, he's been overperforming, but it's not been a crazy overperformance in terms of where the positions he's picking up. He's playing sort of as advanced as Cancelo was when he was at City. He's defensively been really solid as well for that City defence, which is only boosting him into sort of the bonus points, etc. And it's another way that City can attack. And a lot of focus on defending against Manchester City is simply defending Erling Haaland and the balls from De Bruyne into Haaland. Whereas that just gives the license for Gvardiol in attack to basically play a left wing role. Not many pick him up, especially if sort of Grealish is playing there as well, occupying that full back. It allows him to sort of get really wide and really sort of attack in late runs, almost like Gundogan did for Manchester City. So he's been fantastic. Yes, a slight overperformance, but he's been doing fantastically, even with the underlying stats.
Yeah, a fantastic option. And I must say, if you're looking at a defender, which not many would be this game week because it is game week 38, he's not really a defender himself either, so I'd be probably having Kvadio top of my list at the moment. And then finally, another defender who's had a fantastic season in FPL is Ben White. Obviously, Arsenal are at home to Everton on the last day of the season. Huge game, title deciding game potentially. What's your thoughts on him, Bennett? Would you look to be doubling up, maybe even tripling up on Arsenal defence this week?
Yeah, I'd 100% be looking at doubling up on the Arsenal defence. You're probably looking, well, last day you never know what could happen, but you're looking at a fairly high percentage chance of a clean sheet here. Them and Manchester City have the highest sort of chance of a clean sheet, statistically speaking. We all know how crazy Gameweek 38 can be, especially when there's a title on the line. But I do think Ben White holds really good value. I think any of those sort of 3-4 Arsenal defenders could be a good play if you know that they're going to start. Like I said, we're going to get a lot of early team news, so leave your transfers maybe a little bit closer to the deadline than you usually would, because it's likely you're going to get sort of a few leaks here and there, and you could get some news about that Arsenal lineup, the likes of Bukayo Saka, Kai Havertz, who's interesting to sort of look at, as well as those defenders. It could sort of tempt you into sort of where you want to invest your funds in the Arsenal players. Okay, so moving on into the midfield, and we were just talking about an Arsenal player. It is Kai Havertz. The underlying stats have been fantastic, particularly over these last few weeks of the season. Everton at home really is a prime fixture to go for. The guy in form at the moment, he's looking fantastic, playing up top for Arsenal. Josh, what's not to like about Kai Havertz?
There's not much, is there? I think the only thing that he does lack is the set pieces that tend to make FPL assets super good FPL assets. Have we seen over the years, like the Salahs, Haalands, Sakas, that sort of thing. But everything else from open play, he's probably, I'd say at the moment, their best attacker from open play, and one that I'd be going for. I'd probably go for him over the likes of Saka and Odegaard, just because his data is far more superior than him. He's nailed minutes wise. We've even seen when Gabriel Jesus has been back, Jesus has been playing in a wide role instead of through the middle, just because Kai Havertz has been playing so well as a number 9. We've seen it for weeks now, if not months, that he is really, really performing in that role. So yeah, for me, if I was choosing any Arsenal attacker this week, he'd be the number 1 for me.
And another really interesting Arsenal asset this week, particularly if he starts, is Leandro Trossard. I think he could be a really fantastic differential this week if he starts. And I think, he's been given a run of games over the last few weeks by Mikel Arteta. I don't think Arteta is going to change that for this final game. So I think a start is fairly assured for Trossard. This could be the ultimate differential to own this week, particularly if you don't think that Arsenal are going to keep a clean sheet. You could double up on the attack, Havertz and Trossard, and really sort of go for the goals, because there's going to be goals on this final day. We know that. Josh, what are your thoughts on Trossard? Is he sort of on the same tier pretty much as Havertz and Saka potentially?
Yeah, I think he's a little bit just off them, but he is still a very good asset. His expected goal involvement per 90 is better than Havertz and Saka. However, he does get subbed off around 70 minutes a lot for Martinelli. So that's one thing that you've got to take into consideration. But like you say, if you are chasing rank, you need to get some, a haul from somebody. I'd have Trossard as one of those players that could really boost your rank this week. Yeah, and super low own. Like, you're not going to see him above 5% for sure. So yeah, if we do get a leak that he does start, I think you've definitely got to consider him if you're making a midfielder transfer this week.
Okay, and next up, we've got, statistically, according to FPL, the most in-form midfielder in the league. It is Michael Elise. Off the back of 2 double-digit hauls, he's been absolutely fantastic in this tail end of the season, particularly since he's come back from injury, etc. In this Palace team that under Glasner has been absolutely transformed. The likes of Eze and sort of like Mateta and all of these fantastic assets that are coming out of Crystal Palace. Is he the gem and the main one to potentially go for against a Villa team that looked fairly leggy, especially in defence against Liverpool, and particularly over the last few weeks with their European commitment? It's taken them a lot out of them. Elise could be, again, the ultimate differential this week.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. He's just been unbelievable, in unbelievable form. Lots of goal threat from him as well as assist threat. So it's not just those assists that typically previously that we'd see from Elise. So yeah, really nice option. Cheap as well. So if you haven't got a lot of funds spare, you can move to him pretty easily if you have like a Garnacho or someone of that ilk. So nice option there as well. And I'd say out of the Palace attackers, for me, he's probably the best one. Just because we've seen that goal threat go up so tremendously. And then, yeah, he's a very, very nice option this week.
Yeah, a really nice option. I think I prefer him to Eze, but maybe a little bit of bias from supporting Reading myself. But Eze is still a fantastic option. It's between him and Elise for all set pieces. Eze has taken the last penalty, I believe, for Crystal Palace
Yeah.
as well. So that is another decent option to look at. And I think, if you go for one Palace midfielder, it's probably enough of a differential anyway. Maybe wouldn't double up on the Crystal Palace attack going into this week, but Josh Eze just as enticing there.
Yeah, massively so. And you say that don't double up on them, but they've been scoring goals for fun in recent weeks. And Gameweek 38, we know, is the highest scoring game week really in the season. So there is definitely a pro for that. And if you really want to go uber differential, going for two could be a nice way to do that. But equally said, if you're trying to get one of them in, I think that's plenty. And I'd agree with what you're saying. I think Elise, despite maybe not having the penalties like Eze does, is definitely the better option.
Okay, and another fairly cut price option. Quite a few sort of enablers in here this week. Brennan Johnson is one to consider. Again, he has returned in his last two game weeks. Sheffield United away is the final fixture of the season for them, who have conceded over 100 goals. And to be fair, the vast majority of them have been from wide areas. A lot of wingers have hauled against Sheffield United this season. We've seen it time and time again. So Brennan Johnson, with his assist potential, could be a really good option again this week. Josh, what are your thoughts on Johnson there? He's got good potential to get the start, first of all, with Richarlison potentially being out again, and to get sort of some attacking returns as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, yeah, even the goal potential that is quite there with him. He's a bit of a big chance magnet. He does tend to miss some, but that's what you get with. That's why he's priced at about 5-6 million. It's because he's not necessarily so prolific. Again, I think it does boil down to the whole Spurs thing, whether they have something to play for. I think that's a big thing in regards to all these Spurs assets that we potentially might look at, and whether Ange decides to maybe rotate that team a little bit. It remains to be seen. But yeah, I think he is a good option and potentially something to consider if you're needing that cut price midfielder.
Yeah, and finally, another cut price consideration would be Morgan Gibbs White. Again, like Forest, basically, realistically, don't have too much to play for because I'd say they're safe. But if there's sort of retrospective point deductions or anything like that, then that may come into consideration there. So Gibbs White will probably play against Burnley away. It's a good fixture. Forest will probably want to finish the season on a high. Again, another differential option to go for if you're looking at it for a lot of managers who may be chasing this their last chance to sort of gain ground on anyone else. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I quite like him. I think he's again an uber differential option. Burnley away is a good fixture. If you're targeting the fixtures, this is the one to go for. I think they're quite defensively poor, although Muric has been almost saving them in recent weeks on a lot of set pieces. Gibbs White, which is a main asset to his game. So a nice option to consider. Again, it's that whole do they have something to play for? But I think in general, Forest, a lot of these Forest players need to be playing for potentially even a move away, or even for their safety of the position next season. Okay, then, so moving on to the forward spots, and coming up first is Cody Gakpo of Liverpool. Obviously, we haven't spoke about any Liverpool assets so far, but it is obviously going to be Jurgen Klopp's last game at the club, at home, at Anfield, against Wolves. Cody Gakpo in recent weeks has arguably been Liverpool's best attacker, especially from an FPL point of view, picking up a lot of returns. So he returned against Aston Villa, got a double-digit haul against Spurs, so he's in good form. Definitely doesn't get all the minutes, but what's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, I think he's a decent option. I think there's a slight chance that Liverpool sort of play out a bit of a weakened team, but I do think Gakpo's minutes to start fairly assured, and I think we should work out again before the deadline whether Gakpo is going to play or not. Nice fixture as well, high points potential. There's not too much more to like about him. With that, Liverpool got a good goal potential, and he's in decent form as well. So I'd say a decent option, of course, if he's going to get that start.
Next up is obviously another Nottingham Forest attacker against that Burnley away fixture, which is a nice one. It's Chris Wood, and his underlying data is phenomenal. It's just that he's not taking a lot of his chances recently, which is actually uncharacteristic of him because he usually is really, really clinical in front of goal. So if you're looking for a super, super high differential, again, if you're needing a little bit of budget, maybe you had João Pedro in attack and you're not really fancying him against United, this could be a way out of that. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, I think he's a way out for managers because this is a transfer that you make if you're in a bit of a problem position and you need a striker to play. I don't think there's going to be too many managers that make this move because a lot of managers, since the bench boost, have quite a lot of squad depth for this game week. So there's probably going to be benching headaches rather than making. I'd say this is probably like a panic move transfer to make if you're sort of got an injured player up top and you need that final attacker in your team. I do think as well he's probably due a goal because of the amount of chances he's missed. So I wouldn't be surprised if he bags a goal in Gameweek 38.
Next up then is Nicholas Jackson, and obviously he again has been in really, really good form to end the season, grabbing himself a goal against Nottingham Forest and then a haul the week prior, which is really good of him. Again, Bournemouth at home this week. Chelsea do have something to play for. Obviously, they're in those European places, along with the likes of Newcastle, Manchester United, etc. So there is stuff to play for Chelsea. They are at home as well, which Nicholas Jackson does have a good record at home at Stamford Bridge. What's your thoughts on him, Ben? He's in your team. Will he be starting?
Yeah, he'll absolutely be starting in my team this week. Chelsea have been in such good form, particularly at Stamford Bridge, and they're scoring so many goals at the moment as well. So I'd definitely look at having him in your team if you don't already have him. That is, he's going to be really highly owned, I'd say. And you know what? I think a double-digit haul again. It isn't out of the question here because Bournemouth realistically don't have anything to play for, so there could be sort of a few goals in this for Chelsea.
Next up then is Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa, and as we mentioned, they do look a little bit fatigued at the minute, Villa, but if they do have that top four on the line, depending on this Manchester City-Tottenham result tonight, it'll be interesting to see how they go about things. Ollie Watkins this season been one of the best players in FPL, if not the best player in FPL this season. What's your thoughts on him, Ben? Obviously, we haven't really owned him in the last, 8 game weeks because he hadn't been doubling. Would you be tempted to bring him back in this week?
I'd be tempted. It seems like the points hauls are sort of tailing off a little bit in terms of his sort of point ceiling, and I just think that's due to Villa's end of the season. They've been so fatigued; they're sort of on their last legs, and it's sort of fairly well known that they're on their last legs. I think there's obviously potential for a good haul there for Watkins, but I maybe would be more tempted by a little bit more of sort of like a exciting option, so to speak, such as a Jackson. Etc. So I don't mind him as a pick, and I think it's a good luxury move to have. But I think there's going to be managers who make moves in potential other areas of sort of difficulty there.
Yeah, and our final forward option this week is Muniz. Obviously, Fulham don't have anything to play for at the moment, but they do face a Luton side, and again, Luton are conceding a lot of goals, similar to Sheffield United this season. What's your thoughts on him, Ben? Again, really cheap option that you could go for.
Again, I think it's in a similar sort of position here to those that are looking at Chris Wood. If you're in a problem position and you need to get a cheap budget enabler striker, then I think he's the guy to go for. But again, this is going to be for managers that didn't bench boost last week, realistically, that are looking to potentially make this move. So if you are in that position and you're sort of looking, I need a cheap striker and need to get someone in, then I'd look ahead to him or Chris Wood. I'd lean more towards Chris Wood, but I don't think he's a terrible option there either.
Okay, then, so that wraps up our Game Week 38 transfer targets, the final one of the season. If you have been watching this season, thank you very much for supporting the channel. We really appreciate it. Loads of content to come next season, and of course, in Euro Fantasy 2.
Yes, and as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL Graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
next time. Have a good game week, everyone.
You may rise, but you'll never make me wanna stick around you.